This is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I was in Maui for my brother's wedding, and his new mother-in-law, Marcia, came over to me, and she, very nice lady, and she said, you know, I absolutely love your show. I listen all the time. If I can't listen live, I'm listening to the podcast, and my favorite thing about it is Steve Cates. I posted that Steve Cates was going to be on today, and the reaction was instant and unanimous, which is, love it when Dr. Sky comes on. Love it when he's on. He's our favorite guest. Best regular guest you have. And I am forced to agree with everyone, including my new sister-in-law's mother, that Steve Cates, a.k.a. Dr. Sky, a veteran radio and TV broadcaster and edutainer who has a great deal of expertise in astronomy and space, is someone that we are very lucky to have as a regular contributor to this show, and I'm glad we've persuaded him to stay up late with us tonight to analyze what's happening in the night sky. Steve, it's great to talk with you again.
Well, good morning, Frank. Always a pleasure to be here on 77 WABC. But first, let me be the first of not many people, of course, who said this. Congratulations on the ratings, and especially a happy Father's Day.
Thank you very much on both counts. I appreciate that very much. Now, Steve, one of the things that I've noticed as I was driving in this week, and believe me, if you know my inability to drive, the last thing I need is more distractions. But I've been staring at the moon all week. And it's been beautiful, number one. And yesterday, as I was driving in, it was reddish, and a lot of people have noticed the same thing going on with the moon this week. What's happening with the moon this week?
Well, obviously, we go to another one of these beautiful full moons just past this particular one, the beautiful full super strawberry moon. Nothing that the moon would actually have to look like the color of strawberry, but many people who see the moon rise, as I'm sitting here in Phoenix right now, Frank, and I just wanted to mention to the audience, the temperature right here now at a little after 11 p.m. local time is a balmy 99 degrees. How about that, as we approach the midnight hour?
Gee.
But the reason I mention that is, as this moon rises, normally when the moon is extremely low to the horizon, we get that what we call the refraction effect, meaning that it seems like it's being seen through, like you're looking through a fish tank. That looks like the illusion is that it looks like the moon is even bigger than it normally is in the sky. But simply due to the fact that thicker atmosphere is there is making the moon look that pumpkin orange or even sometimes blood moon red. So this is also a very spectacular moon, though past. We have a series of what we call supermoons throughout 2022. It started in May. The June full moon, of course, the one that we just talked about, and also the July and the August moons will also be considered supermoons because of their proximity to what we call perigee. When the moon is closest to the Earth, we call it perigee. When it's farthest, we call it apogee. But in this case, Frank, from the romantic side, what's more beautiful, right, than looking over the ocean or some old lake and seeing that shimmering moonlight, and especially when it's that beautiful as it moves into our evening and morning sky.
I couldn't agree with you more. By the way, if you have questions related to space or astronomy for Dr. Sky, a.k.a. Steve Cates, you can give us a call, 1-800-848-9222. He's kind enough to join us for the hour. You can also check out his Dr. Sky blog at ktar.com, which is just terrific. Steve, let me ask you about a story that I covered a bit yesterday, which is the news that this radio telescope that the Chinese control, apparently one of the biggest and most impressive telescopes in the world, they detected a radio signal which they initially thought might be extraterrestrial, but it could also have been interference. And then the government and the government-run media that published this initial report, they rushed to delete this within a day. What do we know about what actually happened, number one, and the Chinese reaction to it, number two?
Well, interesting news story, Frank, and I just want to do the backstory on this. This particular radio telescope is officially called the 500-meter aperture spherical telescope. That sounds like a lot of words. In Chinese, it's called the Tianyan. What it translates to mean is the sky eye. And yes, yours truly has nothing to do with being a part owner of this thing, but what is it? It's a 1,600-foot dish, like a parabola, that's actually carved inside of a mountainous area. Now, reports come to us from all over the world through the Chinese news services that, yes, they theoretically have detected some kind of, sort of alien signal. And then, obviously, like you mentioned, all of a sudden, all the news stuff goes away. Well, the real backstory on this is kind of funny. It may be that it's called just spurious radiation. In other words, there might be some terrestrial signals that are actually interfering, and it's a little bit embarrassing here for the Chinese, or, for that matter, for any of these radio telescope operators. You need to be in an environment that has absolutely no interference. And one story, which is kind of along the same lines as this one with China, is another large radio telescope around the world. The astronomers were getting very excited when they started to see a repetitious signal that they could actually measure and print out, like up, down, had a rhythm to it. Well, guess what they found out later? It was the microwave oven that somebody down the hall had actually started a cup of coffee to warm up a cup of coffee. So we're not going to get too excited yet. Obviously, there's a lot of concern about this. And there have been signals in the past that we've detected that actually, well, one of them was called the WOW signal. That was actually from a university here in the United States. And that one still probably is one of the most prolific signals yet unexplained. But to put this one to rest, Frank, for now, at least we're not sure, at least the astronomers are telling us, and the scientists there in China, it may be involving some kind of other signal interfering with their work. Let's hope they come up with something else.
Absolutely. A lot of folks lining up to chat with you. Let's begin with Max in Manhattan. Hello, Max.
Thank you for taking my call, guys. I got two questions here. One,
good morning, Max.
The perigee of the moon. I've seen it in photos where it is, like, say, from Cadiz, Spain, and it seems like it's huge. So my question is it really that big, or is this just some sort of Photoshop? And the second question, follow-up, would be, were the ancient Chaldeans, to this day, some of the best astronomers in history?
Absolutely, Max. Great questions, and good morning to you and the listeners again. When we talk about a perigee moon, what we're seeing is obviously the moon is closest to the Earth in this particular cycle. And this particular moon was some 223,000 odd miles away. And what does that mean in relativistic terms? Is if you were able to drive to the moon, even with these horrible gas prices, kidding, of course, if you drove 75 miles an hour, 24 hours a day, even that distance, which is close enough, would still take you about 130 days of continuous driving. The illusion appears, as I mentioned before, the moon has a static diameter. It's obviously in the sky. We're looking at a half a degree of separation in the sky. But when it's low to the horizon, it obviously appears like it's larger. But to some, now this goes into a great story, we don't have a lot of time, but it's also an optical illusion. And we can explain that in detail, hopefully, with this program sometime in the future. But the second part of your question about the Chaldeans, absolutely. Some of the most sophisticated astronomers in that whole area of Mesopotamia and throughout the area of Persia. It's amazing, Max and Frank, how they actually were able to calculate future events in astronomy without anything like we call a sophisticated calculator today. That is something that I think really is so amazing. Studies continue to reveal, even through Greek and Roman astronomy, something called the Antikythera mechanism, which was found under the ocean, a device that looks like a plate that has smaller little wheels on top of it. Imagine, how the heck did they even use a thing like that? How did it work? And it was very accurate in light of the fact that we have sophisticated computers. They didn't.
Yeah, great question, Max. Let me say hello to Al here in Manhattan. Hello, Al.
Good morning, Dr. Cates. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning, Al. How are you?
I have a question. I'm doing okay. You know, about the moon, what's funny is, you know, that where you grew up was here in New York, I believe, Jackson Heights, and you're in Arizona now. Basically, it would take you 2 days to drive, and that's basically the moon size across also.
You know, you're absolutely right. Isn't. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, I use that in a lot of my programs out there because obviously we have a lot of friends out here in Arizona from New York. And again, people haven't heard this. Yeah, it's that the diameter, if you were to go from New York to Phoenix, it's like the diameter of the moon.
That's right. My question to you is this about the Artemis project. I plan to go back to the moon.
Sure.
It's been often delayed, and they're planning now, it was originally July or August. If you could tell us a little bit about it, and just a little small thing that I wanted to maybe give you guys, Frank and everybody at the station, there's something called NASA.gov, and it says, we are going. So NASA.gov, we are going. And basically what it does is it takes your name as it's going around the moon. You know, you're basically a virtual person on it. So they give you like a little certificate. It's a boarding pass. And all you got to do is go to nasa.gov. We are going. And I put one in your name, Frank, Curtis, everybody at the station. And they ask you for a PIN. The PIN is 7777. So if you ever wanted to print that out, it's a nice thing. I even did one for Carmine,
Thank
Frank's
you.
son.
Thank you.
Al, that's amazing. I was promoting that on the shows out here that I do. And you're so right.
I didn't know that.
It's the coolest little thing, Al, because when we do a lot of these programs for children and stuff, you see the smile. I mean, it's just amazing, and adults alike. So you're so right, and you're so gracious to be able to talk about that. But let me go on just mentioning a little bit about Artemis. The rocket is obviously the size of a Saturn V moon rocket. It's been moved out from the big vehicle assembly building to do this time an actual fueling test that they have to get right. And the last time they put it out there, they had a few issues, so they put it back into the big VAB. What's the VAB? The vehicle assembly building is actually one of the largest buildings in the world. It even has its own weather inside there. You see rockets in there, and there's clouds forming toward the top. But what they're hoping to do is to actually do a demonstration. It's actually what they call a live mission. No astronauts on board, where they'll launch around the moon, similar to what Apollo 8 did back in 1968. But they're way behind schedule on this, and I think there's a lot of cost overruns, not to be negative, but it's one of the ways to get to the moon. Maybe not the most inexpensive way, maybe one of the most expensive. Elon Musk and the Starship is obviously something that's giving a lot of, a lot of competition to the moon race. But Al, that's awesome that you put the names out there like that, and I hope everybody goes and gets their boarding pass.
Yeah, thank you.